The docking bay of Viral 3 buzzed with its usual rhythm. Mechanical arms lifted cargo, engineers shouted through comms, and shuttle doors hissed open and shut. No one expected anything different that day. But when an old, scarred transport shuttle limped into the hangar, silent and unregistered, alarms didn't go off. There were no weapons detected. Just a weak life sign and a ship ID that didn't make sense. Tech crews froze when they read it. SS Tempest. That ship had been destroyed 5 years ago in the Nibari Rift. Everyone on board had been declared dead, including its human captain, Elias Rourke. The air shifted. People stared. No one moved as the shuttle door cracked open, creaking like something ancient and unwanted. And out stepped a tall figure in a faded Federation uniform, helmet under one arm, his face hollowed by time but unmistakable. Elias Rourke had come back from the dead. Whispers filled the station like smoke. Some ran. Some recorded. A security team formed within minutes, unsure whether to arrest, salute, or just stare. Elias said nothing. His boots clanged against the metal floor, slow and heavy, like someone walking out of a grave. He looked thinner than his file images. Older, too. But his eyes still burned with the same focus, the kind that used to make his crew feel safe in impossible situations. As the guards stepped closer, weapons drawn but not aimed, Elias raised his free hand slowly. "I'm not here to fight," he said calmly. His voice cracked slightly, as if unused for too long. "I need to speak with the council. And with Commander Solari." That name sent a fresh wave through the crowd. Commander Solari wasn't just a respected officer of the Valari species. She'd been stationed here since the Tempest's disappearance, rising in rank over the years. But what few knew was that she had once shared more than duty with Elias, something personal, something deep. And now, she stood just beyond the security line, frozen in place, as if her entire reality had just twisted. Her pale violet eyes locked on the man she'd mourned, buried in ceremony, and dreamed of for 5 long years. Her throat tightened. She stepped forward without thinking. "Weren't you dead?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the storm of memory and shock crashing inside her. Elias turned his head toward her slowly, and for the first time since arriving he smiled. But it was a strange smile, grateful, tired, and full of something she couldn't read. "I thought I was," he replied. Then the security team surrounded him, not aggressive, but firm. Protocol had to be followed. Unknown ship. Unknown origin. Presumed dead man suddenly reappearing. He was escorted silently through the corridors of the station, people parting like waves around him, staring in disbelief. Cameras tracked every step. A few tried to ask questions, none got answers. He was taken to a secure debriefing chamber. The room was bare except for a table, 2 chairs, and a floating screen. A medic scanned him. Oxygen levels normal. No signs of disease. No implants, no tracking bugs. His vitals were calm, too calm for someone just back from the dead. When asked what happened, he began slowly, carefully, as if piecing the story together in real time. "The Tempest went down," he said. "There was a breach in the rift. A gravity well no one saw coming. We lost the engines. The ship broke apart." He paused, staring at his own hands. "I should have died with them. But I didn't. Something pulled me out. Something not human. Not Valerie. I was taken." Solari entered quietly during the middle of his explanation. The guards didn't stop her. Her authority here allowed it. But she didn't interrupt. She just watched how his body didn't quite move like it used to, how his eyes flicked to shadows like they were more than shadows. He continued, talking about a place that had no name, no sky, no time. "They preserved me," he said. "I don't know why. I think they were studying me. Not like a lab rat. More like a message in a bottle." He shook his head, frustrated. Time didn't pass normally there. It felt like a few months. But for all of you, it's been years. I only realized that when the construct let me go. Celery stepped forward now, speaking for the first time in the room. You expect us to believe that you survived in some kind of alien sanctuary while the rest of your crew died? Her voice was sharp, clipped, but her eyes betrayed something else. Elias met her gaze. I don't expect anything, he said. But it's the truth. I didn't escape. I was released. They wanted me to bring something back. At this, the room stilled. Something important. I didn't come alone. Confused glances were exchanged. There was only one life sign, a guard said. Elias nodded. I meant I brought something. It's in the cargo hold of the shuttle. With that, a small team was dispatched to retrieve whatever he had carried. Meanwhile, Solari sat across from him, her expression a careful mask. You know how impossible this sounds, she said. A dead man returns with an alien story and a mysterious object. You've been gone 5 years, Elias. People moved on. I moved on. He nodded slowly. I never expected to pick up where we left off. I just needed to see you again. Before everything changes. That last sentence sent a chill through her. Changes how? She asked. He leaned forward. The construct. It didn't just save me. It showed me things. Possible futures. Scenarios. Timelines. And in everyone I saw, something's coming. Something big. Something that ends civilizations. Over and over. The only difference in the timelines that survived was us. Humanity. Something about how we think, how we adapt. They believe we're a missing piece. And they gave me a key. By the time the object was brought into the chamber, everyone was silent. It was a smooth, palm-sized crystal, glowing faintly with a blue pulse. Not technology anyone recognized. Not a weapon, but not entirely inert. When Elias held it in his hand, it responded, pulsating slightly faster. This, he said, is what they gave me. They told me to bring it to someone who could speak to stars. He looked directly at Solari. They meant you. The air grew heavy. Solari reached out hesitantly and touched the crystal. The second her fingers made contact, the glow intensified, and a soft chime echoed in the room. No one could tell if it was sound or thought. Solari flinched, eyes wide. She heard something. Not words, not images, just a presence. Something ancient, curious, patient. Elias didn't look surprised. It's starting, he said softly. Outside the chamber, the lights of the station flickered. Across the void of space, somewhere near the edge of the system, something stirred, a dormant signal reactivated. And while people argued about protocols and quarantine and what Elias truly was, far above them, something began to listen. Elias sat quietly in the cold, gray room, his eyes fixed on the glowing crystal resting on the table before him. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat in stone, and the silence around it made it feel even more alive. The air was tight with unspoken tension. 2 guards stood near the door, stiff and alert, though unsure whether the man seated before them was a hero, a fraud, or something stranger. Solari stood in the corner of the room, arms crossed tightly across her chest, trying to keep her thoughts from unraveling. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since the moment she touched the artifact. There had been no voice, no message in words, just a feeling that something far bigger than her, or even her species, had brushed against her mind. She hadn't told anyone yet, but when she touched it, she saw stars. Not like from a ship window. No, she felt as though she was inside them, moving with them, drawn towards something ancient and waiting. That frightened her more than she wanted to admit. Elias finally looked up, meeting her eyes. You felt it too, he said quietly, like it wasn't a question but something he already knew. Solari didn't respond right away. Her face was composed, her voice calm when she finally spoke. I don't know what I felt, but I know what this looks like. You disappear for 5 years, return from the dead with a strange story and a mysterious alien object, and now our station sensors are detecting unusual gravitational spikes near the outer ring. You think I won't question your motives? Elias nodded slowly. You should question me. Everyone should. I questioned myself every minute after I woke up in that place. He leaned forward, his voice gaining strength. But I didn't ask for this. They chose me. They kept me alive because they saw something in humanity, something they think can stop what's coming. One of the guards, a young human officer with shaking hands, shifted nervously. What do you mean, what's coming? Elias looked at him, eyes steady. The extinction cycle. They showed it to me. Civilizations rise, burn bright, and vanish. Not from war, from silence. Something empties them. No survivors. No wreckage. Just planets without life. Every cycle ends the same, unless a certain pattern changes. And in one timeline, only one, they saw that change begin with us. Solari's voice cut in, sharp and clear. Why you? Why now? Elias breathed deeply, as if searching for the right words. Because we're unpredictable. Because we create under pressure, not just survive it. And because when every other species gave up or followed rules, we didn't. Solari studied him closely, trying to read between the lines. Elias was different now. Not just older or more tired, he carried something with him, like knowledge that weighed him down. She remembered the man who used to laugh in mess halls, who quoted old Earth novels, who once held her hand in silence during a meteor storm. That man was still in front of her, but he was also something else. He'd seen things she couldn't imagine, and part of her hated that she hadn't been there with him. Yet a deeper part wondered if she'd even be able to handle what he'd seen. What does it want from us? She asked, gesturing to the crystal. Is it a weapon? A warning? Elias looked at the crystal and then back to her. It's a beacon. It activates something old, something buried. I think. It calls others. Survivors, maybe. Or watchers. I don't know. But I know we have to follow it. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered overhead. A low hum filled the room, rising in pitch, followed by a sudden shift in gravity that made everyone sway on their feet. Alarms didn't blare, but an automated voice echoed through the station. Anomaly detected. External energy field approaching dock ring 4. Solari turned instantly to the door, barking orders through her comm. Seal all exits. Evacuate non-essential personnel from outer decks. She turned back to Elias. Is this it? Is this because of that thing? Elias stood slowly, eyes still on the crystal. It's not an attack. It's an arrival. A moment later, the station's main view screen activated. Officers gathered in the command center stared in stunned silence as a shape drifted into view, massive, black like deep space, and pulsing faintly with the same light as the crystal. It was not a ship in any familiar sense. No thrusters, no windows, no markings. Just a silent structure, hovering near the station like a sleeping giant. Solari watched it from the control deck, her breath caught in her throat. That wasn't there yesterday, one technician whispered. It wasn't there an hour ago, another added. Elias stepped closer to the screen, his voice calm. It heard the beacon. Now it's waiting. Solari turned to him. Waiting for what? Elias looked at her. For you. For us. To listen. A new wave of questions exploded around them. What did it want? How did it arrive? Was it dangerous? But beneath all that noise, Solari felt a strange certainty building in her chest. That this wasn't a trap. It wasn't an invasion. It was an invitation. And only those who had been touched by the crystal could answer it. That night, Solari sat alone in her quarters, the lights dimmed. She held the crystal again, letting it rest in her palm. It didn't glow this time, but it felt warm. Her thoughts drifted to Ias, to his story, to the way he had looked at her like time hadn't passed. Part of her wanted to believe everything he said. Part of her already did. But something told her that this was only the beginning, and the real answers were still waiting out there, beyond the quiet stars. The strange vessel outside Varel 3 remained silent, unmoving, yet its presence was like a shadow cast across the minds of everyone on the station. For the past 12 hours, it had hovered just beyond the docking ring, too close to be natural, yet too still to be hostile. Every scanner, every sensor, every probe returned the same answer: no activity, no weapons, no response. It was there, and it was waiting. Inside the research bay, the artifact sat under a containment field surrounded by scientists, energy specialists, and alien tech analysts. They poked and measured and ran simulations, but none of it made sense. It didn't emit radiation, didn't react to electrical impulses, and didn't appear to be made of any known element yet. It responded to touch, and more strangely, to emotion. When Elias touched it, it pulsed gently, like a heartbeat syncing with his. When Celery did, it warmed and faintly lit up. But when others tried, it remained dormant, cold, silent. The room buzzed with quiet tension, minds racing to understand something that refused to fit into known science. Celery stood nearby, watching the process with a mix of doubt and awe. Her instincts, trained over years of military service and diplomacy, told her this thing was not dangerous in the traditional sense, but it was far from safe. It was intelligent, and it had chosen to respond only to two people. Elias entered the lab without a word, his steps slow and calm, like he had already accepted what others were still struggling to believe. The scientists turned to him with tired eyes, eager for anything he might offer. But he didn't speak to them. He walked straight to the artifact and stood in front of it. Celery followed him, watching closely. He reached out and placed his hand flat on the containment field. The field flickered, then faded on its own, like recognizing a command. His fingers met the surface of the crystal, and it lit up instantly, brighter than before, glowing with soft waves of blue and white. The lab lights dimmed for a moment, as though the artifact had pulled energy from everything around it. Celery felt a vibration pass through the floor, like a distant sound too deep to hear. Then the station's systems flickered again. Not in warning, but in sync. As if something large and unseen had just connected. A soft chime filled the room, not from any speaker or machine, but from the artifact itself. Shapes appeared in the air above it, like a projection. But these were not maps or languages. They were patterns, moving symbols that shifted like liquid. Some resembled constellations, others looked like living cells splitting, forming, changing. The scientists stared, trying to record, trying to make sense of it all, but Elias didn't need to. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but clear. It's a map, and a message. It's showing us what came before. What was lost. Celery stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the shifting patterns. Can you understand it? She asked. Elias nodded slowly. Not completely. But I feel it. Like memory that isn't mine. He turned to her. They're not just showing us where to go. They're warning us. These patterns, they repeat. Over time. Across galaxies. Civilizations rise, they create, they thrive, and then something erases them. Not war. Not disease. Something quiet. Something final. But this thing they called it the Star Root. It was made to stop the cycle. It carries memory across time, and we're the first to find it in this era. Celery felt the air thicken. She had read myths, old Valerie stories of ancient beings that spoke to the stars, that planted knowledge in the void and vanished. Most thought it was symbolic, metaphor. But this was real. Why us? She asked. Why not another race, another species more advanced? Elias looked at her, eyes steady. Because we're not predictable. Humans and Valerie were different in how we solve problems. We combine logic with emotion, structure with instinct. And they believe that's the key. That's what they needed. That's why they waited. Suddenly, the holographic symbols paused, reshaped into a single large shape, a rotating star map with one system highlighted in gold. The room went still. That's not far from here, one of the scientists said quietly. 2 jumps at most. Elias stepped back, breathing heavier. That's where we're meant to go next. That's where the next piece is. Before anyone could speak, the station shook slightly. Not from impact, but from pressure. A wave of energy had passed through the outer hull. Sirens didn't sound, systems didn't fail, but every screen blinked once. Solari's communicator came alive with a voice from the command deck. "Commander, the alien vessel has opened. A new structure just formed smaller, like a shuttle, and it's docked with Ring 4. No weapons. No movement." Elias and Solari exchanged a long, silent look. They didn't need to say what they both understood. It was not a threat, it was an answer. The artifact had given them coordinates, a message, and now a way to leave. They made their way to Ring 4 quickly, accompanied by a small security escort. When they arrived, they saw it. A smaller craft, shaped like a spiral shell, had grown directly out of the larger vessel. Its door was open, revealing a glowing interior that pulsed with the same rhythm as the artifact. No crew, no controls. Just two seats, one larger, one smaller, shaped to fit a human and a Valeri. Solari stared at it, heart pounding. "It knew," she whispered. "It made room for both of us." Elias nodded. "Because we're meant to go together." Into the ancient ruin, their suits adjusting automatically as the air changed. Lights flickered to life, guiding them inward, as if the station itself remembered them. Inside, they found carvings, murals, and metal stories of a people long gone. They saw depictions of stars, of machines, of something dark approaching like a wave. And at the center of it all was another artifact, similar to the one they had brought. But this one was cracked, flickering, as if damaged by time or something worse. Elias touched it, and his vision exploded with images. He saw the builders of this place, tall beings with golden eyes, reaching across galaxies to warn others. He saw them hiding pieces of the stair route across systems, hoping someone would one day gather them again. Then he saw the end darkness swallowing light, systems collapsing, silence spreading. Celery pulled him back as he staggered, gasping. "What did you see?" she asked. He shook his head, eyes wide. "It's not just a warning. It's a puzzle. And if we don't find the rest, the cycle begins again." As they stood there in the quiet remains of a forgotten civilization, with only each other and a broken piece of alien memory, they realized the real choice had only just begun. It wasn't about whether to follow the path, it was about whether they could finish it. Because something was already moving through space, and the countdown had started long before they ever returned to Viral 3. The room at the heart of the ancient station was silent, save for the soft hum of power reawakening after what felt like 1,000 years of sleep. Elias and Solari stood before the cracked artifact, its surface glowing faintly with an inner light that seemed to flicker like a heartbeat struggling to continue. Around them, the walls were alive with symbols and images pulsing slowly into patterns, maps of long-lost star systems, fragments of languages, and ghostly silhouettes of beings now extinct. The air felt heavier here, not from lack of oxygen, but from the weight of memory, of history trying to speak again. Elias knelt beside the artifact, his hand hovering just above it, feeling the strange warmth pass into his skin even before he made contact. Solari stayed back, scanning the walls with narrowed eyes, watching how certain symbols repeated themselves, especially the spiral and the broken line crossing through it, the same symbol Elias had seen in his vision aboard the ship. "It's trying to send something," Elias whispered, not sure if he was speaking to Solari or simply thinking out loud. "But it's incomplete. This piece is damaged." Still, he placed his hand on the artifact, and in that instant, the station seemed to breathe. A deep, vibrating pulse moved through the floor, and suddenly the holograms above their heads ignited again, but this time faster, more urgent. Unlike before, there was no dreamlike drift through memories. This was a flood. Images, sounds, entire languages compressed into seconds, then replaced by visions of destruction. A wave of darkness crossing galaxies, stars dimming, voices crying out and then vanishing into silence. The ancient builders had tried to resist it, whatever it was. They created the star route, planted its shards across the stars, encoded pieces of warning and knowledge inside it, hoping someone would one day find them all, reassemble the message, and finish what they could not. Elias gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay connected to the flow of memory, though his head pounded and his heart felt like it was skipping beats. Then he saw something different, an unfinished signal, a message that had never been sent. The holographic images focused on a single system, one still intact, one that had not yet been touched by the darkness. It was Earth. But the message wasn't just meant to be a warning, it was a choice, a call to action. Solari stepped forward as the room dimmed and Elias pulled his hand away, gasping for air. She grabbed his shoulders and steadied him, her voice low but sharp with concern. "What did you see?" He looked at her, his eyes wide with understanding now. "They didn't just want us to find the pieces. They needed us to complete the message and send it before the cycle starts again. And Earth. It's the last place that hasn't fallen. If we don't act, it will be next." She didn't hesitate. "Then we send it. Whatever it takes." But the console built into the floor did not respond to touch. The systems required more than a code or command, they needed completion. Elias looked back at the artifact and realized the truth. It's not enough to send their words. The message must come from us. From now. From this era. They couldn't finish it because they didn't survive. But we're still here. Solari nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. So we finish their message and add our own. Behind them, the corridor filled with murmurs, reports, warnings, but none of it mattered now. The path had opened. The next step in the message had arrived. And somewhere in the stars, the story of extinction and survival was waiting to be written again. Not by gods. Not by machines. But by those willing to listen and act. The silence inside the alien vessel was different from any silence Elias or Solari had ever known. It wasn't empty or dead, it was deep, full, like a quiet breath held by something ancient and aware. The smooth walls around them pulsed faintly with light, responding to their presence, adjusting temperature and pressure, like the craft had already studied them. As the outer hatch of the station sealed behind them, they both stood at the entrance of the strange spiral chamber, their eyes locked on the two seats in the center. Elias stepped forward slowly, his boots making no sound on the polished floor, and gently ran his hand along the edge of the seat shaped perfectly for a human. Solari followed, her mind still reeling from everything that had happened since the artifact had awakened. This wasn't just about a mission anymore. It was about the future, not just of humans or Valerie, but of something far bigger. The beacon, the map, the arrival of the alien ship, it had all led to this single moment. Elias turned to Solari, his face serious but not afraid. "You don't have to come," he said quietly. "They called me. You never asked for any of this." Solari raised an eyebrow, her voice calm but firm. "You think I'll let you fly off to some unknown system alone, again? I lost you once, Elias. I don't plan to repeat that." But even as she said it, part of her wondered if following this path meant losing everything they had rebuilt. If they stepped onto that ship, there was no telling how long they'd be gone or if they'd ever return. Elias saw the hesitation in her eyes, and he felt it too. The ship was alive in some way, aware of them, and he could feel the pressure of something waiting far away, a signal like a heartbeat in the distance, drawing him in. He hadn't told Solari the full truth. When he was trapped in that unknown place for 5 years, he hadn't just been kept alive, he had been changed. Not physically, but something in his mind had shifted. He could feel patterns in time, in energy, and sometimes he could almost predict the thoughts of others before they spoke. The artifact had done something to him, and now he feared it might do more. Solari stepped closer to him, her voice lower now. "We need to decide, Elias. Once we sit in those seats, everything changes. We leave behind command, our crew, this station. Everything we know." Elias looked into her eyes. "We've always been soldiers, explorers, survivors. But this is different. This is a chance to stop the cycle, to understand what destroyed all those other civilizations. If we don't go, someone else will, but maybe too late." He paused, then added, "And I don't want to do this without you." Her answer was a long breath, followed by a nod. She placed her hand in his, and together they sat in the strange seats. The moment they did, the walls of the vessel brightened, and the spiral shape around them began to shift. Not violently, not with engines or noise, but like the ship had folded space quietly around them. In an instant, the stars outside the viewing panel twisted, and the ship leapt. The journey was not like hyperspace or wormholes. It felt more like sinking into a dream. They saw flashes, images that didn't belong to them. Cities made of crystal. Empty planets with broken monuments. Beings made of light, speaking in soundless tones. The ship was not just traveling, it was showing them the past, teaching them without words. Solari saw a moment that chilled her, an entire world vanishing, its people looking up as something massive blotted out their sky. No war. No noise. Just light, then nothing. Elias saw a symbol repeating, burning into his mind, a circle within a spiral, then a line through it. The meaning was unclear, but it stirred something in him, a message waiting to be unlocked. Then, just as suddenly, the journey ended. The ship had brought them to a dead system. A star burned weak and red, and around it spun a shattered planet. Debris floated like bones in space, but something remained, a structure, large and dormant, orbiting the remains. It looked like a piece of an ancient station, but the architecture was strange, curved and organic, unlike anything built by human or Valerie hands. The alien craft docked gently, and the hatch opened with a hiss. Elias and Solari stepped out. They worked quickly. The ship's AI, silently observing, now assisted, projecting patterns, stabilizing the energy fields, helping translate the ancient code into something modern systems could understand. Elias and Solari spoke the words into the console, part history, part warning, part hope. They told of the ancient builders, of the star root fragments, of the silence that had consumed thousands of advanced races. But they also spoke of resistance, of unity, of the bond between two very different beings, human and Valerie, who had crossed death and distance to stand together. It was not just a message of fear, but one of choice. That survival was not only about technology or strength, but about trust, instinct, and the courage to listen when others are gone. When they finished, the station's core glowed brighter than before. The artifact, broken as it was, pulsed in time with the signal that had formed an interstellar transmission, now ready to launch. Solari activated the beacon. The entire station shuddered, and a wave of pure light burst from its top, shooting through the empty system like a flare in the void. That light carried the full message, encoded across every frequency known to the builders and several more the ship had learned from Elias and Solari. Across the galaxy, wherever remnants of the ancient builders' devices still slept, the message would awaken them. And on Earth, when the signal arrived, humanity would face its moment of choice. Whether to believe or ignore. Whether to unite or fall. The mission was done, but the war had not yet begun. As the wave faded, the artifact gave one last pulse, then cracked fully, its energy spent. The station began to dim, no longer needed. Elias and Solari returned to the ship, silent and breathless, knowing the true journey was ahead. The alien craft responded to their thoughts again, folding space around them as it carried them away from the dead system. In the distance behind them, the ancient station vanished into the void, but its message now lived, traveling faster than light, reaching for minds willing to hear. And somewhere, in the vast dark between stars, something stirred. Something that had once silenced civilizations felt the shift in time. The pattern had been broken. A new player had entered the cycle, and for the first time in 1,000 lifetimes, the silence was no longer certain.